Let's start with a question from Bronco Girl. What do I say to friends that have deconstructed and left the faith? I still pray for them, but it absolutely breaks my heart. I want to say something to them and acknowledge their pain, but also point them back to God.
Well, I can think of two questions that would be worth asking. And one of them is, why did you deconstruct rather? Why did you leave? I don't know how they're going to answer. I have an idea because there are some standard things. The two standard things are bad experiences in the church with other Christians. That's one. And the second is bad theology. In other words, they had a whole bunch of misunderstandings of what the Bible taught. They might be hit with the slavery question or the genocide question, which are admittedly difficult to answer. But they are answerable, and this is what Paul Koukl has done with his book, Is God a Moral Monster? But he goes into all the background, and that changes things significantly when you see the whole story. But those are, and sometimes there are other unanswered questions, but we don't know with an individual unless they're asked. And so I would suggest that, is it Bronco?
Bronco Girl.
Bronco Girl, ask the questions with a genuine curiosity in a non-judgmental way. I just want to understand. And do not be prepared at that point to counter anything they say. If these are friends of hers, then she's going to have other opportunities. And if she asks a question about the reasons and then she counters, then they're going to feel maybe like they were asked disingenuously or maybe they were trapped. There'll be other opportunities to revisit these, but you want to have a clear understanding of what the concerns and objections were, okay? And they generally fall in these different categories: bad experiences with Christians or misunderstanding now of Christian theology. Now, the third one, though, is an attractiveness of things of the world. That is, I don't like what the Bible teaches about hell. I don't like that Jesus is the only way. I don't like especially the sexual restraints and boundaries that the Bible gives. I don't like those things. Now, this is called volitional doubt, and that's another reason why they would move. That's a very different kind of thing. They're their own standard of morality, or the culture is, and they want to go with the culture rather than with Christ, okay? So that's one question that they could ask, just the reasons. And here's the second question that should be asked a lot, I think. Okay, I understand that you love Christianity. What's the alternative? All right, yeah, everybody goes somewhere. They land somewhere because humans have this desire to have their life make sense. Now, maybe they land in atheism. Maybe they land in progressive Christianity, which is a veneer of Christianity, but none of the doctrine. So I don't even know why they keep calling it Christianity. There's various versions of progressive Christianity, but the main thing is they reject the Bible, blood atonement. They reject the sexual standards. They reject hell. So these are all pretty solid core things that relate to central Christian doctrines. All right, so that might be another reason they go to that, and that's part of the volitional doubt I talked about earlier. They don't like these things, so they're going to adopt a faux Christianity, and I'm using my words advisedly here. It's a phony Christianity, as Elisa Childers says with her book title. It's another gospel. And, of course, salvation on that is social justice. It isn't rescue from sin. And so asking what's the alternative is important because people always have to go to something. Now, if they go, no matter what they go to, there are going to be problems with that. In fact, there's going to be more problems ideologically with what they go to than what they came from. However, if they're leaving and it's because of volitional doubt, I don't like this, I like that. Well, atheism's better. You do whatever you want. No standards except for your feelings. What seems right to you at the moment. Oh, gives you a tremendous sense of liberty. That was me in the mid-'60s. And I wrote about it back then. My notes, journal, whatever. Wow, what a tremendous sense of liberty. I've cast off all the shackles. I can do what I want. Of course, I was also marching against the war in Vietnam because that was an immoral war. So that was a obvious, glaring contradiction, which I was aware of. But the appeal is do your own thing. And, if it feels good, do it. Live for today. These are all slogans of the 60s that are now in the DNA of our culture and in the blood of all young people now, to the degree that it's not just I get to do my thing, you get to do your thing, but rather I get to do my thing, and you have to agree with it, and you have to approve of it, and you have to celebrate it, or else we're going to hurt you. That's a big difference between now and the 60s. But the same kind of licentiousness is in place because that's human nature.
When I read this question, the thing that stands out to me is she says she wants to acknowledge their pain. And I don't know what she's referring to there. And that makes me think
Bad experience.
Bad experience. It seems less likely to me that the pain is coming from leaving and separating from Christians, and more likely that it comes from whatever bad experience they had or perceived bad experience. Sometimes people who deconstruct will interpret the upholding of standards as a bad experience, and that causes them pain. So it's unclear to me what she's talking about there, but I agree, Greg. Your categories were great of reasons why people leave. But the first thing to say is if there's something they don't like, or there's something that or Christians were not nice to them, that doesn't change what is true.
Yeah.
And that should be what people care about. What is true? Now, people have a hard time wrapping their mind around that idea because, first of all, they think religion is all a matter of subjective preference.
Yeah.
They're not thinking of it in categories of truth. They're thinking of it in categories of what will help me, what will make my life nicer, what will give me a community.
In the moment.
Right. They're not asking what's true. And so then Christianity fails them because it's not giving them what they want in the moment and what they want to hear and the kind of community that they want. So maybe a topic to discuss with them is the idea of truth. Do you think that there is a spiritual truth out there?
By the way, there is a spiritual truth. And that, I mean, it might be that there's no spiritual reality, but that is the truth. There is a truth of the matter here. Whether any particular religion is a true religion or none of them are true because no religious view is accurate, then that's a truth as well. So there's a truth out there. And the question is whether people are interested in finding out what reality is actually like, and this is what you're getting to, I think, or they just want to do whatever they want to do, and that's also what people often gravitate towards.
So then after I established the idea that, well, I guess before you can even get in a conversation, what you would have to ask is, are you interested in hearing answers to your concerns?
Yeah.
Are you interested in finding the truth? Do you care about the truth? Or do you have some other thing that you're placing above that? Because if they have some other thing, then all you can say is, look, I would really like to talk to you about what's true. If ever you want to do that, I'm open to hearing that. Now, if they are open to hearing answers, I think the first thing I would ask is, okay, if Christianity is true, then shouldn't we expect to see people sinning? Shouldn't we expect there to be a standard that we expect that they should uphold? And shouldn't we expect to see them fail at that standard? And shouldn't we expect our own desires to be confronted by the truth of Christianity? Because we are fallen too.
Yeah. One of the reasons, and many people have heard this, why I think the Christian worldview is compelling is because it's the best explanation for the way things are. That is, every particular detail is exactly what you'd expect of a religious view that matches the way the world is. Okay. And this whole point, Amy, about, in a sense, judging the claims of Christianity as a worldview by the behavior of Christians is such a big mistake. It's like as if I said, well, I thought about atheism for a while, and then I read about all these mass murderers who are atheists, so I never gave it another thought. Well, obviously, the, the conduct of some atheists doesn't tell you about the credibility of atheism as an ideology. By the way, I do think that there is a connection between the belief that there is no accountability of any sort and there are no moral constraints and the excesses that we see atheists do. I mean, there is a connection between beliefs and actions, but there is also a disconnect. And so you can have people who are Christians or say they are and live totally non-Christian lives in their behavior.
And then we can ask, by what standard are you judging the Christians?
Yeah.
Where does your standard come from? So then you can get into the moral argument and the idea that requires a standard above us, above human beings, by which we can judge everyone. Otherwise, no matter what the Christians do in the church, their standard is correct because they're all agreeing on it.
They're doing what they do, what they want to do. And somebody might say, well, it's their standard I'm judging. I'm judging them by their standard. They're not keeping it, so they're hypocrites. Oh, right then, you just inserted your standard. Hypocrisy is wrong. Which I agree with you, but the point we're making is that this turns out to be a self-defeating kind of an analysis. You can't get away from these kinds of assessments.
And I also suspect that this goes back to what we've talked about a couple episodes ago about the idea that Christianity is about making you good. And so therefore, Christianity doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't work because it doesn't make you good. You're still a sinner. And you discussed this of what C.S. Lewis's idea about you have to judge the person before and after they became a Christian, not just against other people.
Right, right.
And that was, I don't know, 2 or 3 episodes ago now. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But this is
about 30 minutes ago, as I recall.
this is where you need, again, to talk about the purpose of Christianity. Don't assume that they understand the gospel. They might not ever have understood it. They might think it's a way to be good. And if it doesn't work, then I want to do it a different way.
So when somebody says that Jesus didn't work, the question is, what is it that you expected him to do? Jesus works really well for what he was intended to accomplish. If we have false expectations, and there was a lot of this during the Jesus movement, how we drum up how wonderful the Christian life is going to be, and Jesus will get your kids off drugs and will make you happy all the time, and you'll never have any difficulties and all that stuff. Well, this is just not true. And so if you expect Jesus to do something that Jesus was not intended to do, well, you're going to be disappointed.
So just to sum up, ask them if they're open to hearing responses to their concerns. Ask them if they want to know if God exists. If God exists, do they want to know? And have them think about that. I think some people would say no, actually, if they're really honest about it. They don't want to know because their issue is with what this God demands.
Yeah.
If the God of the Bible exists, do you want to know that? Should you want to know that? Obviously, you should want to know that because this has some implications for everybody's life. But what you're going to find out is that they don't really like the God of the Bible all that much. So there's a spiritual issue here, and I think praying is definitely a good way to go. And thankfully you're doing that, so that's great.